What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench Podcast Network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew. Shad, Kelvin, KB Film Room, Big Dog, Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. And for everyone who's tuning in, continue supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to that channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. And as they used to say back in the day, whoop, there it is. Whoop, there it is, man. Look, as a lifelong fan of the NBA, lifelong fan of the NBA, when we try to share with newfound fans or the youth generation of NBA fans that, or to remind other basketball fans who have been maybe adopted a different thinking about the NBA and whether it's in an appropriate state or not, we try to convey the message here that there is a problem, a lingering issue with the NBA that can be traced back to a definitive moment in time. And we try to convey that. You know, I know a lot of times what is said falls on deaf ears. And I get it, man. I get it because we are a grassroots channel. We're not, like prominent figures, or we don't have large platforms. But what we do have, man, we have the history of the league to rely on. And the history is always going to win out. And I came across this tweet today by none other than ESPN's Brian Windhorst. But ironically, he's contributed to the problem. But this was a quote that he tweeted. It must have been within the past 24 hours. And let me read what this says. Brian Windhorst says the NBA media is not in a good place. NBA media right now, we're not in a great place because I think we're devaluing things that help build the league up. Like one of the things is storytelling. Everything is too short right now. People are too focused on tweets, too focused on guys getting crossed over, getting dunked on, guys getting embarrassed, social media posts, not as much on storytelling, learning about players and learning their backgrounds, what I call chronicling the season. Excuse me for some of the mishaps of some of the words there. But one of the key words he said is devalue. See, when you circumvent the system and try to create narratives and adopt an agenda-based philosophy, well, the league in which you are trying to create those circumstances out of, it becomes devalued, and it's a step-by-step devaluation. One of the great things about the NBA that I always say and always try to convey is when new players entered the league, they were heavily promoted, especially if they were dominant in college prior to entry into the NBA. From Shaquille O'Neal to Patrick Ewing to Ralph Sampson, especially when it came to centers, Hakeem Olajuwon, Grant Hill, Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler. We can go down the line. Purvis Ellison, Tim Duncan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West. I mean, we can go down the line. Young talent became devalued over the past 15 years instead of viewing them as players to continue moving forward and building along with, well, the young players became viewed as nothing more than pawns in the game to flip around to acquire superstars. So when you do that, you're already setting back the league dynamic because the league always moves forward with a new generation of basketball players, of basketball talent. And as I always like to mention, during the Chicago Bulls' first championship run from 91 to 93, when they won their first three-peat, by the beginning of that third season of their first championship run, the team that received the highest degree of promotion that generated the largest merchandise sales, it was not the Chicago Bulls. It was the expansion Charlotte Hornets. And at one point, they probably had, outside Chicago Stadium, of course, that the Bulls played at, the arena in New Orleans, they used to call it the Beehive. The Beehive. That was like the loudest arena outside of Chicago Stadium and the Omni, where the Atlanta Hawks used to play out of. And it was awesome, man. And you start seeing basketball fans wearing Charlotte Hornet startup jackets. They was like one of the first teams, along with the Orlando Magic, to break out with the pinstripe jersey look. And then they was drafted in tremendous college talent. Larry Johnson, Lonzo Mourning, Kendall Gill, Muggsy Bogues, Steph Curry's father, David Wingate. They had a very talented young team. And the league promoted the team, the city, the players. So you became familiar with those young stars. You see what I'm saying? And they had like their own promotional campaign, their own commercials and stuff. The Grandmama commercials for Larry Johnson and whatnot. So what I'm trying to say is, the more you promote, the more everybody gets shined, the better overall excitement the league generates. When you eschew all that and cast that aside and try to focus on one player, it breaks down and the league dynamic deteriorates. They did not do that for the Michael Jordans. Even though he was the best player in basketball, they didn't do that. Because quiet as it's kept, they would always say, that's why Michael Jordan always had the mindset, to be considered on the same level as Magic and Bird, I have to win just as much, if not more, than what they did. You see what I'm saying? And not only until he achieved that goal was he considered historically a better player than Magic and Larry Bird. It wasn't no agenda drive. It wasn't no narratives being, generated around the clock. So what we've been trying to say, the basketball fans who grew up during that time, we've been trying to share it, man, that this media, these talking heads, these pundits, man, they have totally brought down and compromised the league dynamic, man. Well, Brian Windhorst sheds light on that reality in that tweet that he posted. It was either today or yesterday, or it was very recent. And when you try to distort history to do that, they can't pull that off with the basketball fans who grew up during that time. They can't pull that off. They have to appeal to the lowest common denominator. What I mean by the lowest common denominator is you try to attract the audience who didn't grow up during that time and is more prone to adopt the narratives that are being generated around the clock. You see what I'm saying? So And a lot of this is made possible through social media. So the famous song by Michael Jackson, probably his staple song of his career, Billie Jean. He say, "Be careful what you do because the lie becomes the truth." You see what I'm saying? And then when you have former players feed into that agenda, man, it creates a very toxic situation. But now what's happening is they're starting to see the backlash of those efforts. And you knew it was only a matter of time before someone eventually was going to point this out. Coupled with the fact that you're not promoting the young stars, you're not doing that. And then not only are you trying to tarnish history and distort the history, but you're trying to take the career of a man whose resume deserves a distinction of being the greatest basketball player we've ever seen in the National Basketball Association, and you try to diminish his accomplishments, well, you're disrespecting the game. You're disrespecting everything that the league was built on. You're disrespecting everything that made this league great. And as I always say, as I always contend, you do not have to be the greatest player ever to be viewed and to be respected and to be viewed in a positive light, a positive fashion. As long as you're going out there, man, and you giving your all, and we can see clear cut that you're giving 150% effort out there, man. Whether you win or fall short, you always gonna be remembered in a positive light, man. Like, man, that dude was a baller, dog. You know what I'm saying? And the only reason they didn't win is because they had to go up against such and such who proved to be better. But I believe a lot was going on, man. See, when you have a prominent voice, when you're a prominent figure, and you got, like 500,000 to 1 million people tuning in to you every day, and you kicking out this poison, well, and when you constantly trash the past, what happens is, when it comes to the current or the new generation of basketball players, or let's say over the past 10 years, they develop this false sense of superiority that they're better than past generations. But what happens is when you create that disconnect, you lose sight of the fact of the sacrifices those players in the past made, where they had to go out there and play the 82 game schedule. Not saying they played all 82 games, but I'm saying they had to prepare for the 82 game schedule. They had the blood, sweat, and tear to help make this league what it is today. So therefore, it creates a mindset of entitlement. See, the players just don't develop this attitude on their own. It has to be an association of people with prominence and a huge platform that generates that type of mindset and conclusion, right? The entitlement doesn't, there are players in the past who didn't play up to their potential. You know what I'm saying? But when they didn't, they were criticized for it. That's the difference. Okay, so what has happened is essentially, and it could all be traced back, and I hate to say it, man, but when you pull back the layers, you can see it as clear as day. The super team era and what it caused, man, it has set the league dynamic back years and decades. Because now you're trying to tell me that all the battles that I saw between superstars back then who had to compete against each other, it means nothing. That's what you're telling me. Because now you're taking the bar and you're lowering the bar. But when you lower the bar, everything gets devalued, even the commentary of the league. See, when you maintain a standard or exceed the standard, the commentary, it follows that, it reflects that. When you try to compromise the standard, well, the commentary is going to adjust. It's going to follow. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, to try to keep up this agenda and these narratives, well, you have to come up with these rationales and these excuses about, what's going on. So that's why they'll say something like, well, the game is better than it's ever been. And then you got guys coming on TV talking about them guys back then were plumbers and firemen. You see what I'm saying? But when I came up watching basketball in the 80s and the 90s, we didn't hear current players at that time trashing past players, man. I remember when Shaquille O'Neal and Patrick Ewing met Will Chamberlain for the first time. The Orlando Magic was about to face the New York Knicks. Now, I believe this was during Shaquille O'Neal's rookie season. And Will Chamberlain attended the game, and then he joined Ewing and Shaq mid-court, and he shook their hand, man. And he grasped Shaquille O'Neal's hand so tight and so strong that it almost looked like Shaq's hand like broke. You know what I'm saying? Because they always said Will Chamberlain was the strongest player to ever play in this league. And when you look at it like, wow, man, that's Will. And Will Chamberlain could easily play in today's game or during the 90s. Easily. So what I'm trying to say is, a lot of this deterioration is due to the fact that they are so hell-bent on trying to diminish Michael Jordan's legacy, it has done a lot of damage to the game. When a player like that achieves what he did, you have to maintain the standard. You have to say, this is the standard. If you want to be considered better than this guy, this is what you got to do. But what happens is, when you try to promote a certain player and try to convince people that he's better than the guy that you're trying to diminish, and when he's not meeting that standard, then you have to start the process of creating narratives and trash in the past. You see what I'm saying? It all correlates. So when we try to share with the youth generation or the newfound NBA fan that they've been misled, well, Brian Windhorst, who actually has participated in this deterioration, I guess he had his welcome to Jesus moment. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, man, we done took this too far. And I believe another factor that has led someone like him to post this type of comment is the fact that we have witnessed a young man drafted into the league who, first of all, he didn't earn his opportunity to be drafted, and he has no business in the league. So now you're making a mockery of the entire history of the league. Now, we're not saying that there were players drafted in the past who didn't turn out to be what was expected, but at least they were dominant in college. That led to the conclusion, like, man, he go pro, man. He gonna do something. You see what I'm saying? That's not what this situation is. This is a young man. Everybody knew what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna bring up his name. Everybody know he was pushed in the league to foster and continue pushing this agenda. But it's making a mockery of the league. And it's bringing down the league dynamic because a young man is getting more attention than people who actually deserve the publicity and being productive and are legitimate NBA players. So at the end of the day, man, I just want to throw that out there. None of this is surprising me. But when we say that sports commentary, particularly when it comes to the NBA, was on par, and it was so prominent during the past decades, 70s, 80s, 90s, the 2000s, especially during the golden era, man. I mean, the people who covered the NBA then, man, they had a long-standing relationship with the NBA, whether they were former players, mainly coaches. It was mainly coaches, man, or just like all-time great players, man, like Bill Russell. He was a color commentary for CBS during the 80s. And, man, it was just a mystique about the league, man, and that's been taken away. But as I always contend, if they promote the league right, like they always did, man, and move forward, man, every generation, new generation deserves that. This league can move forward in a positive light because there is a lot of young talent in the league. But I think a lot of what's going on with these young players, man, they're being discouraged because they're doing everything right and they're not being recognized the way they should because they continually trying to push and prop one player, man, and it's not fair. They didn't have to do that with Michael Jordan. They didn't have to do that. As he always say, my game did all the talking. But none of this surprises me, man. I'm going to read this out one more time what he said. NBA Brian Windhorst says the NBA media is not in a good place. NBA media right now, we're not in a great place. Now notice he didn't say sports media. He said NBA media. So we really don't have this problem in football, and we definitely don't have this problem in baseball or hockey. NBA media right now, we're not in a good place because I think we're devaluing things. See, competition was devalued. Young talent was devalued over the past 15 years. Coaching was devalued. Position basketball was devalued because of the super team era. I'm telling you. And building a team from scratch, step by step, that was devalued, and it led fans to, want to see teams pursue winning at all costs, no matter what. Even if the moves were based off of anything and everything but logic. Taking shortcuts in this business, man, is not going to last. But he said, I think we're dividing with things to help build the league up. Like one of the things is storytelling. Everything is too short right now. People are too focused on tweets, too focused on guys getting crossed over, guys getting dunked on, guys getting embarrassed, social media posts, not as much on storytelling, learning about players and learning their backgrounds, what I call chronicling the season. And I'm going to tell you what's hurt. When he says storytelling, I believe a great reference is being made towards in the past, college players entering the league, they had 3 years of collegiate basketball experience. So those players already had a following. Patrick Ewing played all 4 years. Keem Olajuwon played 3 years. Clyde Drexler played 3 years. Ralph Sampson played all 4 years. He's one of the top 5 greatest men collegiate basketball players of all time. Like a Christian Laettner played all 5 years. Purvis Ellison played 3 years. He was like a number 1 pick of the '89 draft. Danny Manning, when he entered the league. We go down the line. Grant Hill, Tim Duncan. They played significant years in college, or even like a Fab Five. Chris Webber did 2 years. Jalen Rose did 3 years. I think Juwan Howard, I believe they both did 3 years. So you already had. They already had a following, man. Like, you was familiar with their life story, how they came up or where they came from, and what made them start playing basketball, things of that nature. Great battles that they had in college. That's part of the storytelling, man. So when you enter the league, you already have a reputation of who you are as a player and what you can do. You know what I'm saying? That's been eliminated over time because, the NBA devalue the process of preparing yourself to be an immediate contributor to an NBA team as a rookie. See, a lot of stuff has been devalued over this period of time. And it's all coming to a head. And this is why ratings or this in-season tournament last year, the inaugural in-season tournament supposed to boost ratings. Man, that was like it's not going to last because it's not real. Because it's not based on competition. It's based on drawing fan interest. See, you can't, the more you lower the bar, the more you're going to try to come up with gimmicks to maintain people's interest rather than maintaining the standard that was generated decades before and just continue what made you successful. And then the players enter the league, on a yearly basis, new generation of players, they can contribute in their own unique way. You know what I'm saying? But when you try to discredit the past, man, it's going to bring trouble. It's going to bring animosity. It's going to bring resentment. And that's what we're seeing right now. And that's why, they have, declining ratings. It all ties in together. It's not an accident what's going on. Not by any stretch. So, like I said, you don't have this problem in football. You don't really have this problem in baseball. You know, they cherish them baseball commentators, man, them historians. They cherish them legendary figures, dog. They cherish the Willie Mays, the Babe Ruths, the Roberto Clementes, the Joe DiMaggio, the Mickey Mantles. You know, even Pete Rose, the situation with him, you know, after he retired. As far as his baseball playing, you don't hear nobody saying, well, Pete Rose was trash or he was a plumber and fireman. You only hear this critique and commentary when it comes to the NBA, and it's because of these narratives, man. And it was all generated by a lot of these talking heads and these pundits, man, that's trying to discredit the past to try to validate someone's career. And when you do that, you're setting the league up for free fall. And it's permeated everywhere, man. The All-Star game is on the verge of collapse. You see what I'm saying? We talking about the greatest basketball exhibition on the planet, and it's on the verge of like they just talking about scrapping it. You see what I'm saying? Because they lowered the bar instead of saying, as they always used to do, the All-Star game features the 24 greatest players on earth. The 12 best players in the Eastern Conference versus the 12 best players in the Western Conference. Like Mills Lane used to say, let's get it on. But they devalued it when they took away the original format and introduced this guy, team that guy. It became individual based rather than having pride as an all-star, representing your team, representing your conference, representing the league, and representing basketball fans across the world who's tuning in. When you strip that, it practically destroys the whole dynamic and the anticipation for the game, and it carries out to how the players perform on the court during the All-Star game. Oh man, it's all tied in, man. It's all tied in. But if the league wants to reestablish itself, they gotta stop trashing the past. Reestablish the standard. And put the focus on, determine greatness. It's about winning. It is what it is, man. That's why you in this business. If you become a professional athlete, man, when you a kid, you be in the backyard or whatnot, dribbling the basketball or hitting the baseball, throwing the football. You be like, oh man, I want to shoot the game winner. I just hit the game winning shot. I just threw the game winning touchdown. I just hit a home run, won the World Series. Kids got that. We got that imagination because we got dreams. Because we see someone on TV, man, that did something great, and we want to emulate that. You know what I'm saying? Well, when you devalue that, man, now you really open up Pandora's box. We wonder why these players, man, don't seem as motivated. Well, it's because the whole commentary, the whole standard has been devalued. That's why. Think about it. The players had the winning mindset in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s. But I believe the super team era devalued all of that, man. I believe the super team era devalued the excitement, anticipation for the All-Star game, because if you build a super team, you done darn near created a pseudo All-Star team anyway. I'm telling you, man, I could spend 2-3 hours breaking down the whole dynamic of the super team era and what it's done to the league. I can just break the whole thing down, man. But I just want to share this real quick about what Brian Windhorst said, man. It's all coming to a head, and the NBA is at a crossroads. And what's crazy is it don't have to be. What I would suggest is stop trying to trash Michael Jordan, because it's almost like you're sabotaging yourself when you're doing that. A man is 6-0 in championship play, never lost a championship on any level, and he started from scratch, and he had to pay his dues. He had to go through the fire, man. You know what I'm saying? They trying to trash that, and ultimately it's not gonna work, and people getting tired of it. People getting tired of it, man. So that's what I would suggest. Leave the past alone. Everybody had to say what they had to say about it, man. And let's focus on the present and the future, man, and correct this stuff and create an environment for competition. Let's see who's the best. And whoever's the best, man, I can live with it one way or the other. So everything right on schedule. Wanted to drop that nugget. Until next time, this is JB for BTB. Behind the bench.